Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the Co-Star, the official newspaper of the Borough of Belmar, and the Asbury Park Press on December 2nd, 2020, and notice of this meeting was posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building.
Thank you, April. If everybody could join me in saluting the flag of our great nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody can remain standing for a moment of silence for our troops, their families, and all our first responders. And since our last meeting, Lois Gallagher, our longtime librarian at the Belmar Library, has passed away, and Mary Hall, a longtime resident, has passed away. Thank you. For workshop tonight, we got questioned at the last meeting about our debt. So I have our finance team here tonight, and we're going to talk a little bit about the debt at workshop. Last year, we were at $30,995,000, and this year, we started out the year at $18,604,000. So I have the finance team here to explain on how the debt was reduced from that number. So if you guys can give us just a general overview of how we did that for this year.
Thank you, Mayor. Essentially, what occurred was that there was an issue of timing. The borough intended to go into long-term financing to take advantage of the very favorable market rates for long-term financing, instead of rolling over notes on an annual basis, which are subject to fluctuation. So because of the timing, the bonds had to be issued before the notes could be paid off. So essentially, it overstated, if you will, the borough's debt service for the end of 2019 going into 2020. Once the notes came due, the funds that we had received from the issuance of the bonds was used to reduce to pay off, if you will, the entire borough note liability. So now we're in long-term financing for almost all of our debt service going into the future.
All right. And I know there's still a lot that we have to do. I mean, we have, back in 2010, the lighting assessment from 10th Avenue down to 16th Avenue has never been collected on. So that's a bond that's out there, and our sidewalk assessment is still out there, so we're still doing work on that. And then, does anybody have any questions for our finance team of how that was done?
Yeah, I think the only question I have for clarification is the difference between the bond anticipation notes and the long-term financing. Like
Bond anticipation notes are short-term financing subject to market rate fluctuations, and they're renewed on an annual basis. The bonds that the borough issues are generally long-term bonds. They're issued for the life of the project, and generally projects last between 10 and 40 years that are funded with bonds. So in order to take advantage of the favorable market rates, you issue the notes, you issue the bonds to replace the notes, and then you have level debt service for a much extended period of time, as opposed to rolling over the notes on an annual basis.
And by rolling over meaning you're not paying down the principal.
You're renewing them, yes. You're basically renewing them, even under the best of circumstances. If you would just set up a payment schedule, notes can only be renewed for 10 years. So they have to be renewed on an annual basis, and you have to pay them off at the end of that 10-year period. So in order to create a level payment schedule, you would basically allocate 1/10 of the outstanding amount for debt service payment on an annual basis, and that reduces the amount of your principal outstanding. Bonds, on the other hand, are for a much longer term, usually the life of the improvement that you're making, And again, the interest rates were very favorable for the borough to take that step at that time.
I know there was a lot of, over the past couple of years, a lot of things that we had to clean up as far as collecting money that would go into reserve to pay down bonds. I mean, maybe you can just give us a little overview of that. I mean, there was a lot of work that you guys have done, along with Administrator Kirschenbaum and our attorney, Jerry Dasty, to collect. I know that we're announcing tonight that on the Lake Como outfall project, we're going to be receiving $700,000 just to finish up that project alone, which will go in reserve to pay down some of these bonds. So maybe you can just give us a little bit of an overview of what had taken place over the past 2 years.
Well, as you know, several grants that the borough had been approved for had been left in an incompleted state. The projects were completed, but the paperwork was not. So absent the completion of the paperwork, you don't get your payments, because most of these grants run on a reimbursement basis. That is, the borough will borrow the money, lay out the funds, make the improvement, and then submit all of its invoices from its contractors, various contractors and engineers, to then gather reimbursement from whatever agency is issuing the grant. So we did have grants for the Natural Boating Infrastructure Grant was closed out. The borough received $259,000 in September of 2019. McCleary Park, which was a Monmouth County Open Space Grant, was closed out in December of 2019 for $92,000. And all of these funds are used to pay down the outstanding debt. So it's not, the funds aren't then allocated to another project. The funds are used to pay down the debt that was issued in order to create the project or pay for the project in the first place. We also had an additional reimbursement from FEMA in the amount of $39,000. And the borough has reserved funds to pay down bonds. We have $1,377,000 in a reserve to pay bonds, which we will be paying off as the due date of the bonds come in. And we also have a reserve for infrastructure in the amount of $81,800. So we have moved from a situation where the borough had not been planning appropriately for its infrastructure projects and its debt service to where we have now set up a program where we're identifying and prioritizing the infrastructure necessary to provide the best environment for the residents of Belmar. And we're also paying down the debt on a regular basis.
Okay. Tom, you have any other questions?
No, I'm really happy to hear it.
Yeah.
Really good news.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for all your hard work, you guys, because I know how much work you've been putting into it. So thank you. Tom,
Thank
do you have
you.
any other questions? All right. All right. Anybody else have anything else for workshop? All right. We'll move on to petitions. April?
Received a petition, a referendum petition in protest of Ordinance 2021-17, which is under review.
Okay. And you have to certify that.
Within 20 days of receipt.
Okay, and that hasn't been done yet. All right. Approval of minutes for July 20th.
I have a motion to approve the July 20th minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Reports of council.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Carvelli.
I know you go left to right.
Yeah, I know.
I actually don't have anything to report this week. None of my committees have met. I did happen to see Tommy B in the deep blue sea in Fiona Plaza last weekend, so it was good to see a lot of people out to see that. So, are you playing again?
The 13th.
The 13th.
Yep.
Good.
Councilman Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's see. Last month, there was no Harbor Commission meeting, but the Environmental Commission did meet. And it was actually a very interesting meeting. I've been waiting to get a chance to tell everybody. A couple of things they were looking at. They're thrilled with the new bamboo ordinance. Thrilled with that. Very happy to see that happen. They're very interested in one of the things that the Spring Lake Environmental Commission is doing is they're trying it's sort of a volunteer ban on gas-powered leaf blowers that the landscapers use. You know how loud they are. They're encouraging them to use battery-powered ones. We're watching that. If it looks like it's the kind of thing that it would work for us, we're definitely going. The Environmental Commission is going to recommend to Mayor and Council that we do the same kind of thing. And one other thing that looked really interesting, some of you might know this, there have been a lot of efforts to try to get an oyster bed planted and growing in the Shark River. Oysters, bivalves like them, are really, really good at cleaning the water. But the problem is if the water's dirty, like the Shark River is, the oysters that live there, they're not fit for human consumption. And DEP has been really, really, really worried that if we tried to do something, at one point there was actually an oyster bed planted and that had to be taken out for that reason. Neptune City is trying some kind of, I think it's tiger mussels. There's some kind of mussels that do the same thing the oysters do, and you can't eat them. They're not worth eating. And they're going to look, again, the Environmental Commission is going to watch what happens over there. And if it looks like it works for them, there's a member of the Environmental Commission that is willing to see about putting one in over on our side of the river. It's really, if we can make it work, it's a great way to get the water cleaned up. It would take time, but it wouldn't really, beyond the planting, you wouldn't even have to really monitor it. You'd basically monitor it by monitoring water quality. Oh, and the Environmental Commission got a new member. Nozer Mehta had resigned because he moved to Red Bank. Colleen Sullivan-Paulus is the new member. Colleen is the resident who organized the Monday night beach cleanups on the beach last summer. And so we're really happy to have her, and she's going to be a great addition. And that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you. The other thing that I have is I know the summer's moving along and we're starting to look at all the fall things that we could do, especially watching with this pandemic going on to see what we're going to be having and what the governor's going to be allowing us to have. But one of the things I want to bring up, and I forgot to bring it up the last two meetings, is the PBA every Monday night is giving out food at Dempsey Park, which is going real well. I know we have Bruce Blattner here that volunteers, and I'm sure he's going to say a few more words, and Greg that volunteers helping out, giving out the food. So, I mean, you guys could mention a little bit more of that, the times of it, but it seems to be going very well for anybody that needs food on Monday nights. The PBA has been organizing that. And so that's just about all I have. So we're going to move into the public hearing on the budget amendment. So if anybody has any comments on the budget amendment that we have to make. Yes.
Just a simple question. Why are we having a budget?
Sure. If someone just could explain to the public why the need for a budget amendment.
Okay. Lorraine, you want to just handle that?
Easy. The simple answer is that there was a debt service on a water and sewer loan that was missed during the budget preparation process. We are required by the state in order to raise the total amount of debt service that comes due. That's the amount of money that's listed on our debts, on our annual financial statement as a liability for the borough in the coming year. Unfortunately, there was an error. One of the loans was missed, and therefore we need to raise the money to create the appropriation to pay down the debt.
Does it make any difference in our what we prepared or anything for the
The only difference is that the borough would be using slightly more in surplus from the water sewer utility to offset the increase in the appropriation. So
And what was that amount?
the amount of the increase was $37,000, just
Okay.
under $37,000.
I'm just curious to know, I looked at the budget figures on the budget that was approved, and I looked at the budget figures on the amended budget, and I couldn't find any difference. Was there?
Okay, the budget, the appropriation is in the NJEIT principle. It was originally listed, it was listed on the budget as was introduced at $15,850, when in reality it should have been $51,000.
But the totals didn't
It's
change.
not, that's the current fund that you're looking at. This is on the water sewer utility only. It would be the back portion of.
But there's nothing here on the water sewer utility. This wasn't part of the
No,
resolution.
because that resolution is only for the
That
current
resolution
fund
is
budget.
only for the adoption of the budget tonight. The resolution to amend the budget is this resolution. This
Oh,
was
I
introduced
don't-
at the last meeting, and it was advertised as required by the state.
The utility budgets are not included in the figures that he's looking at.
Right.
They're not there on the state budget.
But this says it's for Resolution 185. That's the resolution that's on tonight, correct?
That's to adopt the
That's
entire
to adopt
budget.
the budget,
What's that?
the next one.
That's the next resolution.
It's the resolution to adopt the
Okay.
budget, which is different from the resolution to amend the budget.
Oh, so on the agenda, there is no listing for that resolution then?
That was done at the last meeting.
It was introduced at the last meeting. It has to be adopted at tonight's meeting, and then,
It just seems a little confusing because it says public hearing budget amendment, and then the next thing right under it is resolution to adopt the budget as amended. So I
right.
don't understand why they don't.
It's a procedural issue.
Right,
So
okay.
there should have been,
So then my question is to this amendment, there doesn't seem any difference.
there is no change.
So that's my question. Why is this on for a budget amendment?
Because it's the budget as a whole.
They amended the budget at the last meeting with that resolution to make the
Right.
change that she mentioned. Now, we have to have a public hearing on it before we can adopt the entire budget as a whole, which is what that resolution
And
is
the reason
for.
why this is here is because we amended the water utility portion of
Yes.
the budget.
That's correct.
But it's not clear. You know, an uninitiated person like myself looking at this, and I look at the thing and I say, I don't see where there's any difference between the budget. I think it would be a little clearer if maybe there was an explanation.
That's
about-
why we have the
about this.
professionals here to help explain the
No,
kind of gray
great.
areas for you.
It's a great thing, but I'm just trying to point out how it is ambiguous. And I know we have professionals here for that. I don't need you to point that out to me. Thank you.
Anyone else? April?
To close the budget hearing?
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve Resolution 2021-185? This is a resolution adopting the 2021 budget as amended.
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Mayor Walsifer?
Yes.
Councilman Carvelli?
Yes.
All right. Public session on any of the resolution items. Yes.
Jerry Buckafusco, 409 Fifth Avenue. Looking at Resolution 2021-189, resolution appointing a certified municipal finance officer. Two questions. Is this a full-time or part-time position?
Part-time.
Okay. And what is the salary of this position? Excuse me?
53 an hour, and it's 25 hours a week?
It has to be less than 25 hours a week.
Yes. Yes.
So it's $53 an hour,
Yes,
less than 25 per week.
yes.
Yes.
And is this person still going to be employed elsewhere?
That
No.
person is me.
Okay. Are you still going to be employed by the Borough of Seagirt?
No, I'm not, as a matter of fact. I've
Okay.
retired from the Borough of Seagirt.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you.
When I looked in the database, they still had you on as an employee of Seagirt. Okay.
Takes a while.
It'll catch up to
It takes
it,
a
I know.
while for
I know. Thank you.
everything to catch up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, April?
I have a motion to close the public session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to approve the resolutions as listed on the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Mayor Walsifer?
Yes.
Councilman Carvelli?
Yes.
Next is second reading and public hearing on ordinance 2021-26. This is the bamboo ordinance that we've amended to now include other invasive plants. It's open for a public hearing if anyone would like to comment on this ordinance.
Seeing none, go ahead, April.
All right, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And a motion to adopt ordinance 2021-26.
Second.
Okay, Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Mayor Walsifer?
Yes.
Councilman Carvelli?
Yes.
Okay, next is second reading and public hearing on ordinance number 2021-20. This is an ordinance for the ban of cannabis. It's open for public comment.
Anybody have a comment? Yes.
Hugh Giordano, Blackwood, New Jersey, but I'm here today as a representative of the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, UFCW. The UFCW is a national labor union of 1.3 million hardworking families, and we are the official labor union that represents cannabis workers from seed to sale, both medical and adult use, under the guise of the AFL-CIO. We are also working directly with our union brothers and sisters in the building trades, IBEW, steam fitters, carpenters, who in S21 also have labor protections for the retrofit and the build out of these facilities. So in saying that, New Jersey has passed some of the best labor laws when it comes to cannabis. In fact, Connecticut and Virginia just stole our language, which is pretty cool if you think about it, you know, to have something stole that's going to create good middle-class jobs. These jobs are not only also come with a living wage, but they're going to come with health care, major medical, dental, vision, sick time, paternity leave, retirement. These are careers. And why are they careers? Because our members are professionals. They're no different than an iron worker. They're no different than a carpenter. They have degrees in horticulture, botany, chemistry. We even have pharmacists that work in the facilities in the retail sector. We're working directly with Stockton University, with Rutgers University, and doing programs where we have internships and apprenticeship programs. We actually have a national apprenticeship program just like the IBEW or any of those trades would have. In saying that, we oppose an opt-out ordinance. We oppose it for more than just working class issues as far as people signing into work, but it also puts a burden on consumers and especially medical patients who have to travel long distances. And people talk about, well, you can deliver it. Well, that's a charge. You know, that's a charge. And working class people who are dying of cancer don't have that money in their bank account. So I would like to suggest two things. The city of Bayonne passed an ordinance 3 months ago, which lays out renewal fees, application fees, what types of licenses they want and what types of licenses they don't want, and how many of each one. And they also made a merit-based application system, because I know a lot of people are concerned about, well, the state hasn't made rules yet. Well, the state's rules are going to come out, and that is in regards to applicants. This S21 has made it very clear about home rule, and in fact, the Cannabis Commission just made a public post today saying that they had nothing to do with zoning. They just said they did it today, that they're leaving it up to the townships, boroughs, and cities. So Bayonne has taken that leadership ordinance, and other towns such as Somerville, Eatontown have copied the same Bayonne ordinance, specifically the merit system. Why is the merit system so important? The reality of it is that these cannabis, when you do opt in, these are not mom and pop cannabis shops anymore. They are big Canadian firms owned by Afria, Canopy, Tilray. They're exporting to Germany as we speak and other European countries. Colombia just announced today that they're exporting. So they're not small mom and pop shops, and the merit system protects the working class and citizens. It looks at environmental factors, Bayonne. If they polluted in Colorado, dump pesticides and use illegal pesticides, who says they're not going to do it here? If they fought workers' rights in Illinois to stop them from forming a union, who says they're not going to do it here? And also, the city of Bayonne's ordinance has points for local ownership, as to make sure that local operators and businessmen and women have the opportunity. If they're successful already in Belmar in the borough, why not let them be successful in another industry instead of having outsiders come in? So the city of Bayonne did a really good job with that, and I would suggest that any opt-in ordinance follow a merit system like Bayonne and other cities and towns. I can also offer a tour of one of our facilities from seed to sale. I always offer the Garden State Dispensary in Woodbridge because it's a vertical facility all in one location, seed to sale, so you see the whole thing. You don't have to ask Aunt Millie anymore in Colorado. You could just see it. And you could see the professionalism. And you could see the people that work there, and also security plan is also in the Bayonne ordinance. For example, Garden State hires all ex-police officers. So you're taking PBA officers, members who are retired, and then getting them a union job again. So we're taking tax dollars and making them work for consumers, industry, and working people. So on behalf of the UFCW, on behalf of the AFL-CIO and the New Jersey Building Trades, we oppose an opt-out ordinance and would hope the borough would move quickly to opt in and to have good labor standards for working class people. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Hi, Maria Rondinaro, 1246 Pine Tree Way. I just have a question about, would this also prevent medicinal dispensaries in town? I know it says recreational, but when I looked at the fine print, it looked like it was all-inclusive.
No, so this ordinance only applies to the Modernization Act that the previous speaker just spoke out of great length. Medical marijuana dispensaries are permitted through the J. Koning Act. So and that's a lot more stringent standard, there's a lot more regulations. So is it capable for a medical marijuana dispensary to be zoned in the borough? It depends on the borough's active zoning ordinances. I'm not certain whether or not we currently prohibit medical marijuana dispensaries.
We currently don't. This ordinance doesn't cover all of that.
It looks it looks like in the fine print that it actually covers the medicinal part as well, which is what's concerning to me, because, you know, as we know, the science is behind that this is an extremely useful drug to treat many things, including cancer, and people going through chemotherapy, people with terrible pain. So my concern would be that this would include people and stop them from getting their medicinal marijuana and having to go elsewhere to use their cards. I hope that we look that over with and make sure that we're doing the right thing for the future of Belmar. And I was just wondering, too, what the council thought about medicinal marijuana and actually having a dispensary in town for medicinal marijuana use.
So if I could just answer your first question before you go over to the council.
Yes,
as far as what this ordinance itself covers, it's only the portions and the provisions that are addressed by the New Jersey Cannabis Regulatory Enforcement Assistance and Marketplace Modernization Act, which doesn't address or cover medical marijuana dispensaries. So I think I have a feeling on what paragraph you're talking about as far as it addressing in the fine print, because it mentions medical cannabis in, I believe it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th whereas, which is the last one on page 2, when it talks about the guidance that's been given by the various reputable agencies. But this ordinance is only a prohibition on on cannabis, as it's been permitted through the newest act known as the New Jersey Cannabis Regulatory Enforcement and Assistance and Marketplace Modernization Act.
Which does not include medicinal marijuana.
That's correct.
Okay. So if this comes up later that we're looking for a dispensary for medicinal marijuana, this will not count. This won't count against someone who's looking to set up a dispensary for medicinal marijuana use.
Correct. If it's already a permitted use, we would have to either consider adopting a new ordinance, either addressing it as far as for zoning purposes, or do nothing. So
Okay.
yes, you're correct.
Okay. And then I would like to know what the council and the mayor and council's opinion on the use of dispensary for medicinal use is in our town.
Well, we talked about it in great length, and, I mean, if there was a company that came in that was well-known, or even somebody like, I just want to pick like a pharmacy, like Walgreens that we have, and they were going to take on the medical use, something like that we would allow. That's something that they would come on an individual basis, and is the biggest thing about this ordinance is there's so many unknowns with the state level as far as the licensing, and the thing is, we just don't want to open it up to any fly-by-night that comes in here. We want to make sure that it's professional, if it's going to be allowed in here. So we're going to take each case by case. I mean, this ordinance goes into effect for 5 years, correct? But we could always come back, revisit it if we have somebody that is super organized, and we know that when they come into town, that it's going to be handled correctly, you know, with the police department and everything that we do. But right now, we felt that, you know, we had a time frame to deal with it, and we figured let's put the ordinance in. We could always back down as people come in and address us with this issue. I think there's just too many unknowns for me.
So you're saying we can back down from the ordinance, that we don't have to
Right.
see it through for the whole 5 years?
You could almost like spot zone different things, even with this ordinance in place.
And so, yes, to answer your question, that's correct. You can always back down, but once the timeline ended, you weren't permitted to opt out or opt in, depending on which side of the inverse you take. So you either had a choice, either enact the ordinance to the strictest intent or permit it in some form or another. But if you didn't do that within the timeline, you wouldn't be able to prohibit it for the 5-year period. But during that period, you can always lessen the restrictions. Like hypothetically, 5 months down the road, we can adopt a new ordinance to permit a portion of cannabis sales or some form of it in one way or another based on how the mayor just explained it.
For recreational use as well, it can be backed down?
Correct.
Yes.
I'm just waiting for anyone else who would like to share their opinion on medicinal marijuana dispensaries.
I'm going to speak before I move my vote.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you.
Anyone else? April?
I have a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And can I have a motion to adopt ordinance 2021-20?
Second.
Okay, Councilman Brennan?
Okay. Just to make sure everybody knows, I have a medical marijuana card, and I drive close to an hour, and I'm lucky to be in the position to be able to do it. You know, I'm retired, I have the time, I can make the trip, and I have the funds not only to afford the medication, but also to afford the gas to go back and forth. I totally understand mayor and council's concerns. I think the state has made it really difficult for municipalities to make any kind of decision, because we're basically being forced to vote on regulations that we haven't seen. You can kind of try to guess based on what the medical requirements are to open a medical facility, but it's just guesswork. I really appreciate my union brother coming down and giving us all that information. It's really nice to know that we have towns that we can look at if we decide to move ahead with that. You know, I've shared a lot. I really wish Councilwoman Wan was here, because I believe it. She and I have talked about this more than any other topic. We talk all the time about it. And I've made it clear that based on my study of the industry, particularly the way other dispensaries on the East Coast are working, one of the things that a dispensary needs is a huge amount of parking, especially when they first open, because there's going to be lines of people waiting, and if you don't have a place to park your car, then your dispensary is not going to stay in business. And quite frankly, everybody knows that Belmar doesn't have enough parking. I really, really, really don't see a situation where, you know, considering the amount of investment of time and money and paperwork that a company would have to do to open a dispensary, that anybody would take the risk to come and do it in Belmar when the industry is really nascent and just getting going in the state. I don't think, honestly, if we did nothing, I don't think we would see a dispensary in town. But that's just, again, that's conjecture on my part, based on observation, but again, still a guess. Basically, what it comes down to is, we had an election, and the referendum made it clear that by more than 2-1, residents of Belmar want access to recreational cannabis in some form or another. Now, we haven't had a chance to go out and check, well, what do you think about having a dispensary in town? So we have to assume, based on the results of that election, that the majority of people in town want the ability to have it. And that's my main reason for voting no. It's because the election said that people want it, and I think we have to honor their wishes. So I'm going to vote no.
Okay. Yes.
And Councilman Carvelli.
I'm voting yes on this. I think it's the prudent thing to do.
Next is first reading and introduction on ordinance 2021-27. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 16 entitled Police Regulations. Do we have a motion to offer it for first reading and introduction?
Second.
This is just to change the time, right? Yeah, right,
Yeah.
okay.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Mayor Walsifer?
Yes.
Councilman Carvelli?
Yes.
Public comment.
Jerry Buckafusco, 409 Fifth Avenue. This is just a follow-up from a question I had at the last meeting. I asked about the beach reports, and at that time, it was stated that they weren't up to date because of the absence of an employee. It's 2 weeks now. There's still no beach reports. So I'm wondering what the problem is.
April, can you comment on that?
When we switched over to the new platform, we were no longer doing those reports. So we discussed, the mayor and I discussed after the last meeting that we would start doing those reports again, so they have to be created, going back to when we started beach sales. So once they're all done, then they'll be uploaded to the website.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question? How much more work is involved in doing that?
Well, Samantha had already started. She imported last year's numbers, so now we just have to import this year's numbers because the reports show a side-by-side comparison.
So, and you have access to those numbers?
Yeah, they're
just-
Excel
it's
spreadsheets,
just
and
a
then
matter-
we just have to run the
All right,
reports.
You don't have to compile them?
No, she was in
Oh,
touch
okay.
with the vendor wristband to see if there was reports that she could print rather than just flipping through screens and getting the numbers. So she's working on that.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, they'll get us the report.
Well, yeah, it is for this year, but the Excel spreadsheet gave a comparison of the year before, so now we have to input this year's numbers into the spreadsheet to go with last year.
The
So,
comparison was part of what made the
Yeah.
report so
Yeah.
visual.
Right, yeah, it was, yep.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Anita Veccarelli, First Avenue. Thank you for your work on the budget. Based on what you said you're saving for infrastructure, so based on what happened on 15th Avenue, clearly our water system, the pipes are old and need to be replaced, and the roads, of course, need to be milled and paved. Is there a plan? Is that in the works? Is there anything we can see? Is there any information like that?
Our engineers right now are working with the water sewer engineers, and I know that the next street that's on the list is going to be the Inlet Terrace River Road pavement. That one, according to water sewer engineers, is fine. We could pave that road without digging it up, but they're getting us a complete list because our finance committee that we meet with every month is trying to come up with a whole schedule on how we could start implementing a lot of changes with the water sewer infrastructure. So it's a work in progress. They are working on it right now with our water sewer department to find out which streets really need to be done and where the sewer systems really need to be addressed. And they just went over the whole study, and they're working on it. It's a work in progress, but we're going to be coming out with something.
Okay, great. Just one other question. The Belmar Fishing Club seems to be adding a land. They keep roping off things with rocking chairs and plants and a dance floor onto the beach. I'm wondering how that is possible, or like on the south side of their building? I mean, that's the beach. Isn't that the beach? I mean,
Well,
am I
it was because of
misunderstanding?
the COVID regulations. When they had the outdoor dining, we allowed them to have a little bit of space because they wouldn't allow, they didn't have anybody indoors, just like we allowed all the other restaurants to do it, but it's coming to an end. So when it ends, if the governor doesn't extend it, all these extra spaces that everybody was able to use for outdoor dining is going to have to be taken away.
Yeah, because they have like rocking chairs up. I mean, it's not, they don't have tables or anything. What I'm talking about are like rocking chairs and they're roped off and a dance floor.
Well, they
I think-
had one little space that there were supposed to be tables there, but we'll have to take a look. We'll have to take a look.
No, thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Bruce.
Bruce Blattner, 407 9th Avenue. Just to elaborate on what the mayor had said about the food drive being sponsored by the PBA, which I'm not a member of. I'm just volunteering my time.
But I knew you had the knowledge of it, so if you just give everybody the times and what they're doing down there.
Right, and just to make it public, you know, they have so much food and stuff, and to give out, just if anybody can let the public know, we have a very good turnout, right, Mark, Greg volunteers too, and just to let you know. 6:30 to 8:30 every Monday evening.
Yeah,
So if
John has
anybody
been putting
knows
out
of anyone.
Our social media director's been putting it out a lot, so,
Right.
And
Good.
I think we've been getting a good response down there. But
Yes, a very
if
good
anybody-
response.
Anybody that has, knows of anybody that needs needs food or anything like that, if we can just get it out to them and get the word out to them. that
Absolutely.
Monday night.
And one other quick thing, the library, being a member of the board, we are having on this Thursday a concert, and then the following Thursday, the 5th and the 19th, at the library, concert, 6 o'clock in the evening, just to make that known to the public. The last concert had to be one of the best attended. It was really, really great. And so this Thursday, a lawn concert, and then the following 2 weeks from this Thursday, another concert. So just throw that out to the public, and hopefully we get a good attendance.
Great. You
Thank
guys
you.
are doing a great job. Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, Maria.
General public questions, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Vicki Renner, 1106 D Street.
Hi, Vic.
Hi there. I wanted to, a lot of things came up kind of all going to the same way. I discussed it a little bit with the attorney. And which representative sits on the planning board or the zoning board? You're the planning board, and who's on the zoning board? No one.
They don't have a council
Okay.
representative.
So, without dating myself, you go back to, so take for instance the planning board. Someone comes to you with an application, and you're going to give the approval, and before you all give the approval, there's a vote, and everybody says, under these conditions, we will grant blah, blah, blah. You're going to have X, Y, and Z, 1, 2, 3, whatever it is, all this list of things that you would like done before you all agree to say yes, okay? So years ago, we found that many applications that had come before the boards, zoning and planning board, the project would get approved, and then it would be started, it would be built, it would be whatever, and no one really followed through on every single thing that was a condition of the approval. So at that time, we had asked if there would be a piece of a document, a paper, that was attached to every single approval that would be given on the zoning or planning board, and be attached to the certificate of occupancy, not the temporary, the final. So, do we have a person in town on any of the committees that follows through on every single application that is granted an approval, to follow through that the conditions that the board requested were done.
Well, it's supposed to be our construction official, but we do have a list, don't we, April?
Well, it's in the resolution. The conditions that are applied to an application are in the resolution, and a copy of that goes with the construction permits. If it's a major development, the engineer is the one that makes sure all the conditions are met throughout the whole process. If it's just someone's putting a deck on or an addition, things, little things like that that go to the zoning board, it's up to the construction office and the zoning office to make sure those conditions are met, if there are any.
Well, I'm not allowed to discuss the one that I brought up, but I can say that 100% what we had asked for years ago was never met. We brought it to people's attention. It never got anywhere. And it's, I guess in my mind, I'm trying to say things slip through the cracks. So I guess I'm asking, as a board member that would be on the other boards, if you could speak to your board, and as the mayor speak to the other board that he's not on, and ask if there would be a checklist, just exactly what I just said, of everything. If there's 5 conditions, check, check, check. There are 5 conditions, 100% that were met. And it wouldn't be bad for the town to post when these things are, so people can see, if you're curious about something, were all the things that the board required, was it met? And is it kept up? Certain things, I think I found that there really isn't a person, on some of the things we asked for years ago, there really wasn't a person that would have the time to check some of the things that we asked for, if that can make sense without saying what we said.
You talked to Patrick
Yeah.
beforehand?
I did
All
a
right, so
little bit.
I'll
I'm-
talk to him.
Yeah,
and then-
I'm not trying to,
but-
I'm not trying to get anybody, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
across the board, in general, the websites that, like, the local websites, Belmar Locals Only, Belmar Wall, whatever, there's always these little discussions that come up about things that happen in town. People bring things up, and people ask questions like, well, whose job is it to do this, and whose job is it to do that? So that,
Well, a perfect example is like, now we really have to look at what's going on at 12th and B Street. I mean, they
B?
started to take the house down.
Oh, right.
And now we have
That's
to look
11th.
at.
that's
Oh,
11.
no, I mean, 11th and, 11th and B, yeah, wrong street, but
Yeah.
11th and B. But now, these are the things that come up that now, any place that gets taken down, we need an asbestos report before
Correct.
we can.
That's something that came
So,
up
I
on
mean,
one of the things.
most
That's
towns
something new.
require it, and I'm surprised that we didn't require it, but we do.
Yeah, they had an asbestos report. It was, I believe that it was missed, though, during that, because it was in the flooring, the flooring material. So what the report they had was inaccurate. That's why I got stopped.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. But, I mean, it's something that we have to look at,
There's
because
little
now we have to
things.
look at that building for about a month now, by the time they
Right.
straighten it all out, and it's, it's horrible, so, but, some of those things that, and you're right about some of the checklists, because we found a couple other things that weren't followed, and
Yeah. I could think
now
of
it's
a
a
lot of
problem. And, and there was things that we have to put in place, and we even explained to our construction official before anybody's getting a CO or anything like that, to
Well,
look at some of these things.
I guess I also wonder, when you say code enforcement, construction, I don't think it's, my job or anybody else that lives in town. I used to do it for 20 years. If I saw something, I called up, I reported it. Sometimes you have to call 10 times, sometimes you have to call 100 times on certain things that we discuss. And, it should be somebody's job in town, not mine, not any other resident. Somebody has to take responsibility. And if you're driving around town and you notice something, and I think what's been happening a lot, one of the other things that comes up and would have also to do with the board and the flooding all combined, is the shade trees in town years ago. If you took a very large tree down, you had to have permission. And the reason you had permission is because each tree drank so much water when the rain fell, that when you took that down, now the water is in the road. And 12th Avenue, that I can remember, never used to flood as much as it does now. But there's a lot of pavers going in. There's a lot of things that I would normally vote for pavers, and we did that instead of, the tar driveways. We tried to go towards pavers. But now they're coming up randomly in, a lot of yards, a lot of backyards, side yards, front yards, they're growing. And even the rocks that people decided that are starting to, don't want to mow the lawns, people are filling their lawns with rocks. And it has an effect on the street. So with the water that we've been getting with these few storms that have been hitting, 12th and E, which somebody brought up the pipe, another pipe you guys are talking about, but somebody else brought up, there's something that was done, that was dug up, and our sewers don't really go anywhere. They just bubble up. They fill up a bunch of water, whichever it holds, and then it bubbles up with so much intense rainfall in a short period of time. But the thing that they did, I don't know, you guys might want to investigate E Street, they started to rip it up, and I guess wherever they were going to drain it to turned out to be not an outlet or something, so the water doesn't have anywhere to go. So it just builds up over there. So pavers, trees, flooding, that's kind of all related. And when we were talking about putting things in a system, if something's in a system or not in the system, as far as getting a temporary CO. So if you get a temporary on a house, and again, it's a 30-day or a 60-day, whatever the time frame is for a temporary, do we have it in our computers that when the 30 days is up, it shows up that says, wow, this address had a temporary, and they never came in for their final, which would lead us to the checklist to check off the final to make sure everything was really done and followed through. So is there, and the reason I ask is that, is it in the system, which Mr. Kirschenbaum will be fully aware that last year there was a very big glitch in our water department system. And I was billed $6,000 when I had a reading on a tenant that was changing. And that happened a year ago, I guess?
A little over a year.
Okay. So I go down, every tenant that leaves, I change it, I switch over. I get a bill for $6,000. I start laughing at the office because I said, this is a joke, right? And my meter had not been read in 3 years.
It was read, it was just zero reads, and we sent the paperwork out to notify that there was a bad meter. So just the monthly amount, the quarterly amount was paid.
I never got any
Right,
notice.
no, well, we
Yeah.
changed the entire
We
system.
changed the entire system because of what happened.
Right.
And I,
There was a lot of
and
things
I
that we
paid
learned
the
once we got here that we had
$6,000.
changed.
So one question
Well, they
was,
can, but we're on.
the what?
We changed the whole system around once we got in here.
Correct.
Once we found out
But
what
if that didn't happen to me with my tenant, I would have never known it could be up to $12,000. I had no clue that the meter was not being read. And it was because a simple button, which I was told, remember we were all sitting there, that a button was not done in the system to show not just Vicki Renner, but Marina Towers and all these other places in town, no one paid their water.
They
No.
only paid the minimum. And that's what happened.
Right.
We worked on the whole
So
system.
did we get all that money?
Yes.
Okay, so that's part of what I was going to ask when you were talking about the budget. But that simple little button, that little glitch that happened just because I got a $6,000 bill, it got straightened out, painfully for me, but for the better of the town. So all these other things that I see or know of, there are little glitches in a lot of our system of things in our computers. And I think COs are another one. If you change COs frequently, and I will bring up your wife, Mary Brennan, when she was a councilwoman, because she was the one that came up with and suggested, which I thought was a genius idea, to put it in the system when we were doing community policing. That way we would know who was living where, because things were changing over. And if you have a system where your CO expires, or a tenant changes, or somebody enrolls their child in the school, that all comes in to the same thing. So do we have that in our computer where if you don't have a CO or it's
Yes,
time for you to renew it?
Last fall, we implemented a new program through GovPilot. It's all online. You file for your application online. and it does have an expiration feature that code enforcement can use.
Okay, that's for the person who came in to get the first CO. What about the person who never shows up and couldn't care less about getting a CO?
But, well, I don't understand your question. If
Like
you
Vicky
rent
Renner
your
comes
house and you
in,
don't get a
I come in
CO.
to fill out for CO, and I was told, do it online, so I did it online to get my
Right.
tenants legit, okay?
Mhm.
But if I just got a new tenant and never came down to register them.
Well, it'd
as
be
a-
no different if we had a computer system or not. We wouldn't know until code enforcement catches them or someone lets code enforcement know about it. Then they would write a ticket for occupying without a CO.
Okay, which leads me to community policing, which was supposed to be part of knowing who lives on the streets. And when people change, that officer would know on 12th Avenue if 6 people moved or 5 people moved. And if they move or they change, they'd have to get a new CO. So if you're honest about it, yeah, you'll come in and get a CO, but if you're not honest about it and you couldn't care less, you don't have a certificate of occupancy for the person living there. Right? You got any ideas on that one?
We're currently updating all our systems. We got a host of problems when we first got here. We're trying to update all our systems to make sure that we can.
This new computer system should start to straighten all that out, this new GovPilot. April and the whole team have been working on that and really try to update and go after people that haven't been getting them and finding out. And so it's
Okay.
being worked on.
Okay, and so my, 2 more things. The suggestion I would say about the committees and the boards, I know the mayor and council cannot dictate to any of the boards anything, but there's got to be a way, unless you want me to go to each board and ask for what I just asked for as far as the check-off list, and also because of the flooding, because of so many trees coming down in our community, I don't know if on other streets if people know, so brand-new houses come in, the lot's cleared, wide open, house goes up, no trees. So as a condition, I would like to see the boards either require some trees be put on the properties, and if not, then maybe you also can negotiate as donating X amount of trees per square foot to the borough, so that we would be able to use trees somewhere else in town to help alleviate some of this flooding that's continuing.
There is a member, she's an alternate, but she's a member of the Shade Tree Commission and is on the zoning board, just got appointed this year.
Okay.
And that is something that she has been bringing up if it does look like trees are being removed.
Yep.
Or if she sees trees on the property that should be removed or shouldn't, she does bring that up during the zoning board cases.
Okay. And the last thing you brought up was the paving of the streets. That with the grants and stuff, the roads that are being paved, again, this thing you slipped through with the crack on that one is 12th Avenue was paved from, I don't know, 35 to B Street, I believe. And in the future, you have a grant coming up from B to A Street.
Yeah, that's
I
all
mean, B to
approved.
Ocean.
And yeah, that should have been done already, but this pandemic has put everything
Okay,
behind
well,
us.
I'm
so-
okay with whenever it happens. I waited
Yeah.
like 7 years for the last one. But
Yeah.
the point is, you have someone come in that does the whole job. They come in, they pave the road, and then the striping takes place. We have zero consistency in striping in this town. If you back out of your driveway, some people have 6 inches with the yellow, some other people have 2 feet, whatever. On all our corners, some people have 25, 30 feet, some people have 5 feet, some people have no feet, some people it's just, every corner should be consistent as we stripe through the community. And on this little website, all these 3 groups that meet and talk and whatever online, they also brought up speeding. And on 12th Avenue, for the first time, they came up with slow instead of stop on a street that does not have a stop sign. And mentally, when you're coming down the street, because it's a 4-letter word, you think it says stop, so you almost stop, and then you realize, oh my God, it says slow, you can keep going, so you go. So it does work, and it does, so if we did that on all, again, consistency, if that's something new that they came out with and it works, we should have it on all our streets. Painting is not a hard thing. It's the DPW is able to do, or should be able to do each year our curbs with the wording and stuff. So I would suggest that We have a paper again, because what happened when they did the first part of 12th, I could not get in touch with our chief, so they sent someone down from the police department that had no knowledge of traffic and safety, and the blueprints were probably 10, 12, I don't know how many years old they were, so we finally got the grant. And they were going to go backwards and take away everything we fought for to make the four-way stop signs, the yellow lines that we fought for with no parking. They were going to put the stripes back in so the cars could start parking again. So I called up to find out, like, why, and they didn't even know the street was being paved. So any street that's going to be paved, and including 12th Avenue, I would appreciate if our chief of police is well aware that that is happening, and I would like the mayor or council or someone to look at the blueprints of what they intend to stripe and just double check it, make sure it's what we want.
I know when you brought this up, I had a long talk with our engineer,
Mhm.
and we had a long talk with the chief, because there is the uniform traffic code on all parking and everything that's put in that roadway.
Okay,
So based on that, every time we're paving or striping a road, it's going to be consistent with the uniform traffic code.
very good.
So we had that conversation before, and when it happened, I had a conversation with our engineer and our chief. So we will make sure that happens on every road that we're getting paved from now on. Because I know on that 12th and D, there was
Yeah, I was like, I'm
some-
always throwing myself in the middle of the road to like stop everybody from
stop
doing
that.
stuff.
Hey,
And
don't throw yourself
you know,
in the
you get a
middle
little
of the road.
tired, it's getting a little old, you know, they're like, oh God, here she goes again. But when they finally listened,
Yeah.
I was right. And it
Yeah,
was all
well-
a bunch of guys like trying to kick me off, trying to, you know, even the police officer said, you can't talk to them. I'm like, please,
Yeah,
you
so
know.
we had that conversation. I had it with our engineer. He understands now, and we had a long talk with the chief, so that anything that we're doing is going to be uniform construction, traffic codes from now
Okay.
on. So, and then it's all, the uniform traffic code covers it all, distance from
Okay.
stop signs, everything, so.
Okay, very good. And my last comment, she'll probably kill me. Linda Sharkus is here. And online, on a lot of these websites, people ask her questions. She does the investigation on things. She tries to help people answer questions because she's involved with community policing. And if you need somebody to be the liaison towards this stuff, is double checking or having somebody be the checklist, I think she's your girl. Okay?
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Maria.
Hi, I'm sorry, Maria Rondinaro, 1246 Pine Tree Way. I should have mentioned this with the resolutions, but I'm just curious, and I'm glad it's coming back in because I just have that question. Were we providing dispatch for Spring Lake Heights prior?
Yes,
We were, okay.
Yeah.
So this is continuing that service?
yes.
And was this cost different? Like, are we charging them more for this service? Because now it's a resolution.
They
so I'm just
do have an
curious.
increase every year, so.
It's higher this year. It's higher.
So it just wasn't in the resolution before? It just was a
I think
service
it's,
that we shared with them?
the contract, right, Patrick? We have a contract with them, so,
Yeah, it's in
yeah,
the
it's all in the
agreement
contract.
attached to the resolution.
Okay, so it's not something new?
No.
Okay, and it's 120,000 per year? Or is that just for the
No, it's per year.
remainder of this year?
No, it's per year.
Per year, okay. I saw a 4% that can increase. I was just curious whether that was something that we were getting our money's worth for. It seems like a good deal for them, you know, for that service. So I'm glad that if you feel like that's fair compensation, then I'm happy with that. My question, which I know I've advocated before for the Zoom platform, I really prefer to see you in person, I'll be honest. I'm done. I do Zoom all day. I do online platforms all day. I am done too. The CDC is now encouraging all vaccinated and unvaccinated folks to wear masks indoors. This is inconvenient, but it's because of the Delta variant of COVID. And our numbers in Monmouth County are increasing. And so I'm asking, is there going to be a mandate for our meetings here to have a mask mandate or some sort of protective measures? And then I would also like to advocate to bring back Zoom. John's doing a wonderful job. with the Facebook live feed. It doesn't allow the same amount of accessibility as the Zoom does, unfortunately.
Okay, well, we've talked about it, we've looked at some of the hybrid meetings, and we're going to see what the governor has to say, because a lot of the towns now are going back. I know Lake Como, right, April, is going back to Zoom because of the mask mandates, so it could be a moot point. We might be going back to Zoom, but, we're looking at it. I know April went to one meeting, checked one of them out, and it's a challenge, so, if we could find an easy way to do it and figure out how to do it, we would.
I know it's an inconvenience. I mean, a masking mandate would also be, something that perhaps we can look into. Like I said, I really do understand. I understand that there are logistical issues with it. But as you said before, the safety of our residents are paramount, and so I would like to continue to advocate for that. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes, John.
Hello, John Walsh, 1101 B Street. I was going to echo what Maria said. I didn't know that she was going to say that. My mother and several of our neighbors are nervous to come to the council meeting. So if there's any version, like Maria said, John's doing a great job. It's just not interactive. People can't call in. They can't ask questions. This is a large room. We can hold the microphone up to something. That's just my 2 cents. I do have, this might be directed towards the police department. Ocean Avenue has those pseudo stop signs for the crosswalks. Is there a reason why they're like in the middle of the road and not near the crosswalks themselves?
I think that's probably DPW that puts them out.
Is there any way we can move them closer to the crosswalk? Because I was crossing the street on 11th Avenue in front of your home, and this car from New York did not stop for me. I was in their lane. They've actually swerved around me. And those signs say crosswalk, and they have a picture of a stop sign. So it makes sense if it would be, I know you were just talking about all these signs and stuff. Okay. Well, it would be better if it was there at where people would stop for a person. And do we have any timeline for that 11th and B Street house to get taken down?
We just discussed that today. If I could take it down myself, I would.
Because we look at it every day.
We're talking about it every day.
Okay.
Put the state, it's in the hands of the state with the.
They give the certificate,
asbestos.
yeah.
Every single day, we're doing something with this, so
It's
And
disgusting.
were they allowed to take down those shingles? Was that like the checklist you were mentioning? Was that supposed to be draped?
Well, they didn't know that basically that it was in the flooring, so they had to stop everything.
Okay.
Demolition. They had to get the state in the inspection and to make sure it was done the right way, because there's permits that they have to get.
Okay.
The way they take it out.
So it's not stalled, so when they came the other day to do something on it?
And
Okay.
it's still-
Yep.
So it's all about safety right now. So
Okay.
it's in the hands of the state, and they're assuring me as soon as they get all the state paperwork done, they're gonna get that done.
All right,
And the
thank you.
companies they hire have to follow those guidelines.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
we were
they-
there,
they
we were
don't
all
get it.
watching it, and then he stopped and left and got out of the car, and I was like, great, we were all breathing this in. Thank you, guys.
Yes, Vic.
I know why the signs are weird like that on Ocean Avenue. I have asked every year since we started those with the crosswalks, and they told me we didn't have enough signs. There were not enough, an even amount of numbers, or the exact amount of numbers at the corners. That's what I was told.
We replace them every single year. We try to get a number in our budget every single year to get them. Unfortunately, people smack into them and they destroy them. Plus, you gotta worry about the turning radius itself on the intersections to make sure that, where people are backing out, where they're turning in the intersections, so.
Yeah.
We'll take a good look at it.
Yeah, because it's common sense that you're approaching the crosswalk, and he's 1,000 times right. I used to drive that way to Spring Lake every day to work, and at Spring Lake, at every intersection, people are stopping because again, it's in your mind. You know to stop at the corner, the sign is there, but when it's in the middle, like to warn you that it's coming up, people blow through, it's like, doesn't work.
I'll work with that.
So that would be great if you could just straighten that out. That's like another easy glitch.
Anyone else? All right, April.
Can I have a motion to close the public session and adjourn the meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
All right. Thank you, everyone.